Welcome to the Klock Hour. I am your host, Marv Kinnel. I have a very, very special guest on here today via Skype. We're just going to talk about a few things, talk about what this young lady's doing and what she has done and where she's been and where she's going. Thank you. I know it's been a minute, but I'm back at it. 2023 now, so we can get right to it. I have Mrs. Wendy KH. How are you?
I'm good, Mr. K. How you doing?
I can't complain. New day, new year. Um, just getting ready to get back at it. And you know, one thing about it, this is not about me. This is about you all and what you've done. You I've met some incredible people in my journey, and you know, a lot of times people didn't think I was paying attention because I always have my shades on, but they're actually prescription. I see better with these than I do with my regular glasses. So I was always looking and paying attention to who was who. And you sent me a message a while ago, Thanksgiving, and it moved me, should I say, touched me. I appreciated it, and I shared it with a couple of other people. And you had said something funny in there towards the stretch, but I was a character just like y'all were. So where are you at now?
Well, after I got out, I went to work almost immediately, starting to help other people who were in similar situations to what I had been. And by that, I mean that, like, I wasn't just helping people who were incarcerated and who wanted to get out and start a good and productive life. I was also, like, helping families deal with people who had an incarcerated loved one, because
Okay.
it's just as hard as on the people who are outside,
Right,
perhaps even harder, honestly, to deal with having somebody who is away from them being locked up from them,
right.
right? Um, as it is for the person inside. And it's also not easy for the people who are involved in the incarceration industry in any way, and by that I mean, yes, the staff and workers too. And some of my fellow former incarcerated people look at me like, what? When I say that, I'm like, I have a background in labor union organization, okay? And so I couldn't help but notice, when
Right,
I got involved. Well, once I sobered up,
right,
um, once I sobered up, I couldn't help but notice, like, wow, this is in any better place to work than it is to live. So
right,
yeah,
right.
so I went to work that way, and then after a little bit, I realized that I couldn't do anything more in what I was doing unless I became a lawyer. And I thought, well, that's never going to happen. I mean, I got a federal felony drug conviction. That's never going to happen.
Right.
And then I started looking around and I found that, there are a couple people who did do that. And I was like, hmm. And then I was like, well, my undergrad GPA kind of sucked. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. So
Right.
I was shy, and then I asked my mentor, one of the people that I was working with, because I was doing paralegal work.
Okay.
And so I asked her, I was like, do you think I'm crazy to even think of this? Just wanting to hear her thoughts. And she was like, here, how about we sign you up for an LSAT prep course? And why don't you apply for this school and that school? Like,
Right.
she was almost more excited about it than I was. I applied to a bunch of schools, and now I am in Buffalo, and I am at Sunny UB in my first year of law school. Yes. And I graduate
See?
in 2025.
Right. And you know what? I had noticed a lot of people think that they can't because of. You know, I never questioned on what people got incarcerated for. That wasn't none of my business. You know, I looked at what you were doing while you were there with me. If you were with me and we were cool, you know, I always paid attention what you're doing now and what you're gonna do when you leave. Because what's her name? James, good James, Andrea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I latched on to them because I saw somebody actually doing something there and then get out and do it.
Hmm.
What's her name? Were you around with the senator from Boston?
No, there were other senators there, though. There was a lady from Maryland who was
Right,
a Maryland state assemblywoman when I was there.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was, I was just fascinated because a lot of times I have been there all them years and you hear people, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and then they don't do nothing. So my
Yeah.
thing was, what are you doing? What are you gonna do? I went to, they had an assembly in Boston and I went up there. The love that
Yeah,
I
I heard
got
about
when I
that.
walked in, it was like, I felt like a celebrity for a minute.
They were telling all of us at home too. I had like 8 million texts saying, "Mr. Kittle's here, Mr. Kittle's here, Mr. Kittle's here." I was like, "Get out!"
Oh, so you know that. You knew that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. For
You
sure,
know,
for sure.
it was just always fascinating to me. And I try to explain it to people, but they don't even fathom at the level that I was in there at. Because and like you spoke on the the holiday meals. So what I
Yeah.
would do is I would say what we need and they give me a little list and I'd spend like 30 or $40 on some of the outside stuff to make sure that we had what we needed, far as seasonings go, extra stuff, you know, different things like that, you know. So that was Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's why I worked those days. You know what I mean? But when you sent me that message, it made me appreciate what I was doing because I always felt like I wasn't there for me. I was there for y'all, you know?
Food is such an important thing, and I'm not kidding when I say that. I mean, that sounds very obvious,
No.
but it's one of our most basic nurturing instincts. It's right next to touch.
Right,
They're parallel to one another, right?
right,
But it's something. It's such an intimate thing too. You're putting it in your body, right?
right,
Okay. So, and food is something that it really reminds us of home, or it takes us away from home, and it's something that you can concentrate on and think, right?
right,
And of course, on a holiday, everybody wants to be with their family and loved ones.
right,
Now, sometimes those are the same people, and sometimes they're not.
right,
But nobody wants to be in prison on a holiday. Okay,
right,
like, come on. And so, all you're thinking about on that day is, I'm not with my people. My people are
right,
probably, watching some football right now. And so, if you're sitting there on top of that,
right.
okay, they're sending you food from the chow hall that, like, okay, I'll tell you, my first Thanksgiving, I had been incarcerated for like 3 weeks, and I was in a county jail at the time because I was held on pretrial.
Uh,
And they show the meal, and I'm sure you know what kind of food it was. It was like a slice of processed turkey with, I guess, what was supposed to be gravy on top, and it looks more like snot. And it's the processed mashed potatoes, that
right,
are like some sort of substance.
right,
And I mean, I'm not dissing on the people who are making that and putting it together. They're given ingredients and they're told to make food and give it to us. Okay. You
right,
can't drag people for that. So I don't want anybody listening to think, like, well, I mean, what were we supposed to do? I know you weren't supposed to do anything,
right,
but it's what it is. So you get to a meal like that. And later, when I got out and I saw what some people are being fed in other prisons, because that's what prompted my note to you that day, is there were people on like Twitter and Facebook and stuff posting like, so this is what was served, in Mississippi today. This is what was served in Texas. This is what was in Arizona, right?
right,
And I was like, oh God, I gotta tell Mr. Kendall thank you, because that man spoiled us. Because when we knew that the holiday meals were coming, we would get excited about them in advance.
Right.
And we would plan and we would say, okay, you buy like some of that like adobe sauce on commissary, and you get some of this and you get some of that. And we would all chip in, from our
Yeah.
own commissary stuff too, because we knew it was going to be good. And that day, and it wasn't just on Thanksgiving, like I'm thinking about Memorial Day too, but
Right.
like, you know, we would get out of our heads for a minute because the
Okay.
food was good and it was something that we would actually eat even if we weren't there. Okay.
Right.
And so for a minute we could just be like, and of course we didn't all get along with one another, obviously,
Yeah.
but for the most part at some point you got to say, I got to live with these women for like the next however long. I can't be starting petty fights about everything, right?
Right.
So yeah, like we would enjoy it, and I remember one day there was one woman who was so sad about being there. You know what? We all have met them. The woman who cries and cries and cries for like weeks and weeks on end, and it's like, oh my God, stop. And then
Right.
Memorial Day came, and you had the barbecue out there or the grill, and you
Yeah.
were flipping burgers, and they were real burgers. I want people to understand that they were
Right.
not like processed like stuff.
Yeah.
It was actual meat,
Right.
okay, that this man made for us. And if you're wondering why I sound so enthusiastic about that, clearly you've never been in a prison. Okay.
Right.
So you were making burgers for us. We could smell it all over because it was on the grill, right? And people were playing softball in the field. And the woman who was always crying all the time, she said, for a moment, I forgot that I was in prison because I was playing softball with some friends. I was smelling the grill. It was a sunny, beautiful day. Who cares?
Right.
Like,
And it was always thoughts like that that kind of made it worth it. At one point I was getting ready to quit. I called them and they was like, "Well, just take 2 weeks off." And the doctor gave me 2 weeks. I was stressed out because I was out of there. But
it's a terrible profession.
yeah,
It is.
it takes its toll on you. Um,
Absolutely. Who wants to lord power over people all day for a job? I mean,
you
seriously.
know what? It's the way that I did it made it easier for me. And then
Of
I
course.
went back to realize that I wasn't there for me. You know, I don't know how religious you are, but I I I prayed on it, and I stayed. Because it wasn't for me. I wasn't there for me. The money, cool, good pay, cool, but what they take you through, and it's not the inmates. What the staff takes you through is a lot, and it's constant scrutiny, constant pressure, you know, constant. I never wished the job on anybody because you have to prove yourself to somebody that don't even know you, you know.
Yeah.
And I told him, I had to explain to one person, I said, listen, I've been working at this capacity in food service since I was 19. I was
Hmm.
ex-Navy, so I've done it. So this is the easy part. But I'm not here to keep proving to you that I am who I am and I know what I'm doing. It just it used to take a lot out of me, and it got me, it almost broke me one time. And so, even reflecting back on your message, I said, this is why I did that for 20 years. I've never
It's
stayed
true.
nowhere for 20 years. And
You
then,
know, yeah.
go ahead.
Like, it, well, I was just thinking about how many times, and people have a hard time believing this when I tell them, but I didn't run into a lot of evil officers when I was incarcerated. Like
Right,
there were most of them were just there doing a job because hey, we all got to pay the lights and eat, right?
right,
But I didn't meet a lot of evil officers. Of course, there were some, but the ones I did meet who were not just not evil, but were good, were
right,
really good and decent human beings, right?
right,
And they would all say something like, "Yeah, but like I hate doing this job." but the benefits are incredible. They're great benefits. Where else can you get a job that isn't extremely physically taxing, and also you don't need extremely high levels of education to do it, so you don't have to indebt
Right.
yourself like to
Yeah.
student loans either. And it's like you're trapped in it because you can't leave. It would be a ridiculous idea. So
Right.
finding a way that you can do it that allows you to still have your humanity,
Right.
you've got to find a way to do that, because otherwise it's so sad to see somebody who comes in as a good and decent human being and is just trying to show decency, okay, and just the system, the bureaucracy of working in that environment. It Watching a good officer get killed by that environment is just so depressing from the other side. It really is. It
You,
truly is.
you know what? When I first started, the older ladies and stuff like that used to be on the compound. They said,
Hmm.
Mr. Kinnel, don't let them change you. And I remember them keep saying that. Don't let them change you. Don't let them change you. And they would say that to me all the time. And I was wondering why. But then after a while, you get to realize this is why. This is why. Because it will change you.
Well, I know you've seen situations like this. The time that really struck me was when I first got there. There was another woman who got there like 2 weeks earlier, and she had epilepsy, and she had just arrived to the BOP in general from like holding facilities and stuff like I had. And so when she first got there, you're supposed to get your medicines reassigned and stuff. And ideally, it's supposed to be within the first day or two. And she'd been there for a month and they hadn't gotten around to giving her meds yet. So she'd had 2 or 3 seizures. And finally, one of our more senior officers, and I know you know who I'm talking about, he went to bat for her basically. And he was calling up, med staff. He was calling, the unit managers higher up, whoever. And he was like, listen, this girl really needs her medication. She's had a couple seizures. I'm worried, blah, blah, blah. He wasn't making out like he was personally worried about her, but,
Right.
I'm worried about what I'm going to do on my job. What are my responsibilities occupationally? He was worried about her personally, but you can't tell them that, you know this.
Yeah.
And they were just basically like, stay in your lane. Like, this girl's having seizures. Those floors are like ceramic fucking tiles. She's gonna bust her head open, and they're
Right.
telling him to stay in his lane. And like, he's supposed to be our officer watching us, making sure we're safe.
Right.
He is in his lane.
Right.
And
Right.
that kind of shit is what kills people.
Right. And it's when I first started, you couldn't. They used to call him a hug a thug. I think it was hug a thug, something to
Hugger,
the
hugger.
effect where you couldn't show that you had any concern. But
Yeah.
you know, I wouldn't be who I am, or I wouldn't be the staff member that I was if it weren't for my crews. I made sure I got the best in the building. And when they touch down and they come through, I'm having a conversation with them to see whether this was somebody I wanted on my team.
Hmm.
And that was certain people thing to work in the kitchen so you could get the goodies and stuff like that. No, I needed you to be good. If you weren't good, there was no use for you. And I don't really tell many people that I worked for that system like that, but I never came in. I came in there I worked for the state of Georgia, and then I worked drug rehab halfway house before I
You
even
worked for
started there.
Georgia?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
must have been rough.
close to max. You know, and
Damn.
I'm gonna tell you about down there. It was state, so you not.
Oh, dude.
I'm a Yankee. I'm coming from Connecticut. So not only did I have to prove myself to the inmates, I had to prove myself to the staff. But when
That
I got
Georgia
to
State corrections, my friend, they are notorious.
what?
They are notorious for being horrible, you know?
it
So
was
I'm like, you poor man.
I did it. I did it.
Yeah.
And you know what? I did it with the best of them. And the lieutenant actually said, you turned out to be one of my best officers. And I was
Hmm.
leaving. Bye. I'm going. I'm out of here. You know, but see, people people don't understand the root of the problem. Like the system down there, they don't pay their staff enough money. You're giving me McDonald's money when I'm dealing with all these different type of inmates. So what do you think's gonna happen? Your staff is gonna get corrupted. You're giving me $20,000. That's McDonald money. And they were making me come get the paycheck. I said, man, this ain't working, man. I'm out of here.
Well, yeah, like when you look at, especially on the state level, I think, I mean, you would know obviously better than me. I think that on a federal level, it's a little bit better, obviously, but like, if you're paying people wages that they could get better if they were somewhere else, although the work would probably be more physically taxing,
Right,
right? And you would have to like be nice in customer service because that's one thing you
right,
don't have to do at
right,
work. Like if you're a correction officer, you do not have to sit there and put on the "Hi, how can I help you today?" smile.
right,
That's not a part of it, right? But
right,
if you don't feel like doing that day, it's not a big deal. But when they're doing things like that, and then they wonder, like, why are guards bringing in, like, cigarettes and cell phones and even, things that could be harmful,
right,
like, that's how it happens. I'm not excusing it, but like, this is the environment that creates it,
right,
and then they'll say like, oh, well, you can't have, correspondence from your family anymore. No more greeting cards for you because they're probably dipping it in meth and K2 and sending it to you. And I'm like,
right,
the fuck out of here. It's your officers. You won't even like, they won't scan them when they come in because God no, because then they would have to pay for when they're going through the scanner, right? Because you're not on the
right,
clock then. So
right,
like, and obviously I'm not going to go through a whole TSA screening process if you're not going to pay me, right?
right,
So then you're going to fight with the unions about it. So it's easier to just say no more mail for the inmates. I'm sure that will work.
right.
But
And
no,
see,
that's not how it
that's
works.
that's the point I was trying to make because if you're starving your staff and then you can like somebody when I was in Georgia, some kid offered me $1,200. $1,200. I said, do you think I would have did that when I first started? He said, no. I said, well, what makes you think that I would do it now? You know, one thing about it, I always maintain my integrity. Everybody assumed and thought, see, I lived a double life because I was doing clockwork, was doing
Hmm.
music outside of work. So that was my double life. So people would assume different things about me when it wasn't true, but I would let them go ahead. But down there, if somebody's offering you, I've seen it, and they're offering these people a couple grand for
I've seen
one
them offer
move.
5 or 10.
See,
And that's just a carrying fee for something simple like a cell phone. And
see,
they don't even want the phone to like, do like business like they're mobsters. No, they're texting with their boyfriend because they don't want to be on the prison phones that are monitored and talking dirty when other officers are listening. I'm dead serious. That's why they want the cell phones. It's true.
yeah, and that's what's gonna bring you to the front with the lawyer thing because you know. And you've seen some of the things, and I always did things like I would think like your thing. I said, "Oh, okay, you want to push my buttons? Let me show you how I operate." So I would go tell maybe a rookie, I'm like, "Go here, go here, go here, and get their phones and get them. They got phones, or they got contraband. Go get them."
Hmm.
Yeah. And then they was firing my staff. I had staff, and I come into work, they're fired. I'm like, what's going on? I didn't care what anybody did, long as it didn't affect my crew and what we were doing, because I wasn't having none of that down there. We wasn't doing that. That would have been too obvious. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
I remember one time somebody tried to hide stuff in your kitchen and you were not impressed.
no, you heard that one?
Yeah, I heard about that one. That was legend.
You know, it's because in a sense, and I hate to put it like that, but stereotypical, who do you think they would think was up to something?
Yeah, I
Me.
mean, come on. Let's face it, it's a racist system. Like, if people don't notice that, like, and I'm not saying like, therefore, like, all people of this color, that color, or creed
Right,
or religion or whatever are evil. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm
right,
saying is just that, like, it's sociology, okay?
right,
And it's just how people interact, and it may not be right, it may not be typical, but it's just how people do interact with one another, and it happens. So of
right,
course they're gonna look at the guy who looks like he hangs out with Snoop Dogg, right?
right,
Like, come
right,
on.
right. Okay,
And that would be an error on their parts. That would be
right,
such an
right.
error.
I gotta wrap this up, but I'd like to have you back. You're full of life, and I'm glad I got to get you on the show and let people know what you're up to, and just to know that you're moving forward. That's all I care about. Like most people, I've seen them, and I'll be like, okay, whatever. You're still on the same wave. But those of you who are actually doing something to be able to help and give back, those are ones, this is what this show is for. So I appreciate you. If I can help you in any way, you need me to speak anywhere, I'm coming. All
Always,
right?
always.
So
And I'll
thank
keep
you.
you notified about cool things that happen. I'll do that.
All right. Let me know, and I'm always willing to run my mouth.
Thank you, sir.
And you take care. Have a good day. And that wraps up our show today. And till next time, the Klock Hour. Peace.